Hello, uh, meet Vritika Rene Viswanathan and her mother Rashmi Viswanathan. Thank you both for doing this interview. Vritika has written a book on a journey with adoption, which is much more than love. Um, I'm simply awed by Vritika for having so much of clarity and emotional maturity at 14 years on and expressing her thoughts so clearly and articulating it in the book on a roller coaster ride of emotions on a journey with adoption. So um, it is simply wonderful. And in fact, I think my husband's also read the book. Both my girls are yet to read, and we're quite fascinated by your journey, Vritika. And thank you, Rashmi. I mean, I think you've been a wonderful support, it sounds, you and your family for Vritika in the whole process. So, Vritika, I'm just going to start with you, and I'm excited, and I'm sure the audience is excited as well to listen to your experience on how you came about with the idea of book and what started it all for you, right? So I'm just going to explore these questions with you. So, how did you process the information of adoption? That's one. And what was your first thought on it?
um, process the process the adoption, like being told when I was adopted. Well, initially I found it scary. I felt like I
So,
didn't.
Ritika, yes, on the journey, on how it was disclosed.
Yeah.
Also, see, that's the most important part. But of course, what has been, in terms of the story or the narrative on adoption that you've understood so far, and then how was the, uh, you know, uh, how was it when you came to know of your adoption, right? I mean, so
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, for to begin with, my parents, they were very kind enough to sit me down, and they brought in. They I'm actually very close with my first cousin Aditya. So they had asked him and his father to come down in case I need someone to lean on or someone to talk to, and if I didn't feel like talking to them. So they were kind enough to invite my brother down to Coimbatore to begin with. So, I mean, when they told me, it was mostly mid sentence, I did realize where they were going to go with this. So I sort of figured it out myself. I was flabbergasted, honestly. I had nothing to say and I didn't know how to react. I mean, I was overwhelmed with emotion, so I did start crying, but that's when they held me close to them, and that's when I felt a bit more okay about this, and I felt like all these emotions rushing in. And when they told me, it was like I did feel like, oh, okay, fine. Maybe I'm someone else. And I felt this urge to find out who I was. So, I mean, when I found out, it is a bit of a roller coaster when it comes to emotions. But other than that, I think it went smoothly. I mean, apart from the crying out, other than that, it did go smoothly.
So what I'm hearing is that, yeah, it sounds like it was sudden. You were kind of flabbergasted. You to know what was coming at you. In a way, you realized before she could complete that
Yes.
what she was trying to say to you, what they were trying to
Yes.
say to you, that you already knew what it was. And
Yes.
what they did also was they called your brother, who you're very close and dear to, and to give you
Yes.
the support. And of course, it was overwhelming and like quite kind of, you know, out of the blue. It sounds that it came to you.
Actually, yeah, it was a bit out of the blue, but I mean, it was about time that my parents told me. Like, they found that this was the perfect timing because before that, I had like I've written my book. I had a lot of illnesses. Then I had moved to
Yeah.
India from Dubai. So there's a lot of change. And once I finally started to settle down, they did tell me. I mean, for me, it was out of the blue, and it is new information. But I felt like the timing was correct for me. I mean, for me, in my story, my journey, I felt like it was the ideal timing to tell me.
So for you, while it was out of the blue, yes, but uh, it was the right timing because you were, I mean, I've read in your book about the various illnesses and you were in Dubai and then you had to move back and so many things were happening to you, right?
Yes.
Um, and and perhaps, it was in your journey, it was okay for them to wait for you till you were 9 years old, when they kind of told you about your adoption. Um, and somehow it I mean your journey started with that information, that new information that you had to process at that
Yes, it
time,
did.
right? uh,
Yes.
in that sense. So how was it, Rashmi, for you? I mean, in the thing of in this whole journey and um, of lots of trials and tribulations is what I hear and from the book and what I read from the book, right? Can you just give a brief on, you know, how did this all happen? When did it start? And, can you just give a brief, uh, outline on your adoption journey as parents, if I may ask? Yeah.
As parents, we actually, when we got married, we had decided to adopt a child. And in UAE, we were not considered as like we don't own properties there, and we are not citizens, so we were not allowed to adopt kids from India. So we had to go through a social worker who was fighting, Mrs. Omna Menon. She was fighting for this cause for all the Gulf countries. And through her, it took almost 3 or 4 years since when the court decided that they can give the kids to NRI parents from Gulf countries. So then when my then when we got her, she was 4 or 5 months. She had scabies, and she had loads of health issues, and she was all the time in hospital with different ailments. Some were very new, and we learnt a lot about taking care of uh, like different ailments like nephrotic and Behcet syndrome, and all was something which I've never heard of. So it was tough initially, but she was an amazing child. She was very strong, resilient, and had her own mind. And the only thing was we were not able to divulge the information, and which kept pricking us. And every time we think of doing telling her, and something would happen, she will again fall sick, she would have been hospitalized, so it kept getting delayed.
Mm,
Then once we shifted to India, we knew we have the support system.
mm,
And uh, it was, I think, 1 year or something when we had come here, and she had finally started settling down, though
mm,
she still didn't have much of friends here. She was still getting used to the culture difference and all those things. But we felt, okay, let us, it was already too late, so had to divulge the information. So we just one fine day decided to, as she has written in the book, drop the bomb on her. so, so poor thing, she, the minute we started on it, she immediately, like, I just started on, there are some babies who come from this tummy and who come from mom's heart. And the minute I said that, she said, I'm adopted. And she was like, uh, she just jumped up and she started crying. And then she looked at my dog, and we have got Cuddle's dog. She looked at my dog and she said, you are adopted too. You know that? And she started crying, and we just let her be for some time. It
yeah.
was like really heart
Yeah, that sounds
breaking
like,
to watch that.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was. I mean, it was not like a very straight, linear journey in that sense, is what I'm hearing, right? I mean, you were in Dubai, there were lots of issues and concerns with Vrithika's health, and every time you wanted to to bring the topic, there was something else to kind of uh, you know um, to be taken care of, right?
That's
Like,
right. That's right.
and address certain medical concerns, and so many new terms, as you said, that you had to, the nephrotic syndrome, and of course scabies at the institution level itself, and coming home, that is something that you had to also, uh, deal with. So in and while that when you did share it, it sounds like, as like Vritika explained, it was just out of the blue, and then it's kind of, it was a cascading effect, at least through the book. I can sense that that's what happened. I mean, you were here, and in that sense, and then emotionally, and then there was this slide at the time when you heard about the journey.
That's right. She just stopped. She just clamped up. She just stopped talking about adoption. She went
Mm,
into a shell,
mm,
and I mean, we didn't know how to help her. We tried different techniques, but
mm,
uh, uh, not exactly techniques, different approaches. But she had gone into a shell,
mm,
and it was affecting everything: her grades, her game, um, her social interaction with other kids. Everything was getting hindered because of that. Though
mm,
I didn't see it that uh, prominently. It's only when she wrote the book, and then I saw the changes in her, how confident she had become, and how
mm,
aggressive, and uh, how I mean, she had become an extrovert. So she was no longer worried about facing the world. So
mm.
somewhere that brought in that confidence,
Back
and with that, I could see the changes. Then only I realized how she had gone into that shell,
into
and
that
her
shell.
life had
So
gone
in a
down.
way that she was that person. I mean, I did see in the beginning she was talking about how exuberant and that really, playful Vritika, and out there, having an opinion on everything. And then somewhere you didn't want to let your opinions out there, right? After you heard about the adoption. I mean, somewhere you clamped up, somewhere you kind of retracted into a shell, from that exuberance into, that, holding yourself back. Yeah. Can you just explain that period? I mean, it's beautifully done in the book, but if you could just share with the audience what really happened at that point in time for you, Vritika.
Sure. I mean, once I did find out that I was adopted, I didn't know how to face it exactly. So it began over there. I I felt lost because up until then I was always, oh my god, okay, so you're this parent's child, you're Vrithika. But after that I didn't know what to do or how to face it. So in that moment I became quiet because I felt like if I didn't talk about adoption, maybe I didn't have to deal with that side of me, right? Like, okay, I'm adopted, that's it.
Yeah.
It ends there. I didn't realize there's a lot more to that, which I just
Mm,
started to realize when I was 14.
mm,
But in that moment, I felt like keeping to myself. I was deep into my thoughts, and that information was always on my mind as I wrote in my book, right? It was
mm,
always there. I was always thinking of it. I was trying to figure out who I was.
mm,
Um, I had an opinion on everything, and I used to be very opinionated. I was very opinionated, and I was very playful and extroverted. That changed because I wanted to know who I was, before I started to talk to others and interact with others. That was my thought process during that time. I mean, it was a bit distracting for me because, especially when it came to tennis, I was very. It had shattered my confidence a bit, if I'm being honest. So, as my mom did say, it affected my marks a bit. And in tennis, I was scared of losing, right? I began to like gain this fear of losing. And once that started to happen, I didn't feel like interacting with children my age. I felt like I should be with myself right now. And I should always be in a deep thought, like on a lot of road trips to Kerala. Everyone will be having a lot of fun, and I would just be looking out the window, thinking about whatever. And in between, once in a while, when I still was curious, if I'm being honest, I was very curious. So once in a while, I would just turn around to my mom and say, "Do you know my mother? Do you have any contact information or something like that?" And I mean, after that, when I started to face my feelings. All this while, I was just neglecting my feelings. I felt like that seems like a headache. I don't want to face them right now. I don't want to deal with the fact that I'm adopted. Let's just move on with life as it was.
So almost like saying, okay, let's just, just put it away somewhere. Let's just, not
Yeah.
even look at it,
Yeah.
almost saying that that's not part of you, that's not part of your narrative. It's something that's out there, and you don't want to get anywhere closer to, uh, closer to it than what you had to deal with already.
Yeah. I felt like at that time I was scared that this adoption, being adopted, would define me.
Mm,
Like
mm, mm.
I would be known as the adopted child in the classroom, or like, yeah, I was scared of that.
You were worried that it will define you.
Yes, I mean, now I have no problem with it. If I'm the adopted child, well, I have a story to tell to everyone, so I don't really mind.
Mm,
At that time, and I knew that my life had changed as soon as my parents told me.
mm,
And I really did want it to go back to the way it was before I was told. I was, um, I was Vritika. I was that very fun kid who
So there's a
was
lot of
very,
it was very conflicting, is what I hear, like
yes,
in that
it
sense,
was.
Ritika. Being that exuberant, opinionated, playful Vritika to then someone who became diffident, who was not out there to put out perspectives, and somewhere within you were introspecting who, what
Yes,
is this? I mean, who are you? Who am I? And those questions, and asking your
yes,
mother at that point in time about your birth parents. And so it was a very
yes,
conflicting period in that sense, right?
yes.
And somewhere along the line, you seamlessly integrated that identity into your narrative.
Yes, I did. See, when I first found out I was adopted, I mean, generally, even now, if I'm being honest, I'm not very fond of change. I was never fond of change, the idea of change. Anything in my life that changed, even a small placement in a painting, it would affect me. And this was a massive, massive change.
Oh, yeah.
So not only did I not want to deal with my emotions, I wasn't sure how I could deal with my emotions, how to go about it.
Yeah.
But over time, I did realize that I do have my whole family's support.
Hmm.
And it was time to embrace it, like instead of hiding that part of me,
Hmm.
I should just let it out in the open. And
in a way that you started owning that story.
yes, I did. I felt like I felt like it would just be an addition to my story. It wouldn't change who I am exactly. Like I'm still Vrithika. And if you do want to define me with the fact that I'm adopted, it doesn't matter because I'm still who I am. I slowly began to realize that.
Yeah. So almost like adding another facet to your identity.
Yes, it
You had
actually made
chosen.
my story a lot more interesting. So
Yeah, yeah.
it it did change my way of thinking and my identity. Like I began to embrace it.
Mm. So owning and embracing it, and then it all culminated into this beautiful, wonderful book called Much More Than Love. And I'm gonna get. I want to actually want you to share with the audience and how that integration happened and what is the tool that you used for that integration, right? I think that is the part that I'm quite fascinated um, about in the book, right? But I'm going to come back to you, Vritika. I just want to ask Rashmi. Rashmi, how did you support her through this period of conflict and so much of that emotions which are, which were out there for all of you to handle, right? Um, and you almost did not see Vritika, as that playful, opinionated, you know, having to have a say in everything, and that confident Vritika had disappeared in
That's
that
right.
flash of a second, with that information on her adoption. How was that for all of you?
Actually, it was quite tough, mainly because she was not sharing anything. Had she earlier, she used to share even the smallest of her feelings, uh, a crush on a guy or anything she would share with us. And I mean, this she had suddenly, she had totally shut herself down, and she was not letting us in. So that was what was worrying us. But we like my husband was spoiling her to the core, which was not right, trying to get her out of the shell and allowing her, giving in to her, um, what do you say, coaxing her to go out, enjoy, have fun. It's okay if you don't do well. It's all right. Life is like that. Uh, but I was worried because this was not leading to a definitive, um, what do you say, destination. It was just like we were just trying to pamper her as much as possible. And the thing is, we didn't know how to actually deal with it. And when she started writing, I could see the trauma that she was going through, because there are times when she would be researching and writing, and suddenly she'll be tearing up. She will just close her laptop, and then she won't write for 3 4 days because she was into that expressing her feeling zone. So that's the time I felt good. I felt at least now she's letting it out. So uh, then she slowly started talking about it and discussing more in detail. Like, she'll come and ask more questions during that time. Though I didn't have any good answers for some of the questions,
In a
and then
way,
she would tell me, "Amma, this is not the way you should tell answer the question."
what I'm hearing, Rashmi, is that for you, as a parent, it was heartbreaking. You didn't know how to support her through that period. And
That's
child
right.
would come and talk about everything, even the crushes and all of that. Here she was reticent to talk about her adoption and what was happening within her, right?
Exactly.
And
That's right.
and when the book started happening, you felt a sense of relief. At least she was releasing those tears. She was
That's
opening
right.
up. She was, in going through the pain, right? In a very open manner, and you were able to connect, and she was able to connect uh,
That's right.
in that sense, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, Vritika, tell me, I mean, what really transpired I mean, transaction analysis is what I hear and read in the book for you that helped you. I'm okay, you're not okay, and those, and you started with that thing of I'm not okay, you're not okay.
Actually, it began with a simple discussion with my grandfather. We were just sitting, having tea, and we were discussing. And while he was serving there first, um, he did a case study, a research paper on transaction analysis, the psychoanalytical theory. So he was talking about how it could change a person, how they're thinking it could help, this can help them better themselves. And I began to think to myself that this could actually be an opportunity for me to change who I am, to deal with, to find out who I am, to better myself, because I mean, I don't think there's a reason I wanted to better myself, but I just felt like, why not give it a shot sort of moment. So after that, I read a lot about transaction analysis, the changes in people, like a lot of research works done, and I felt like this is it. This could be the thing that makes me a better person.
Mm,
Like I could find out who I am using transaction analysis. So I mean, I did write this book for my school as a school project, and we were just discussing on like what should we do for my school project, because honestly everyone knew what they wanted to do for their school project. I was still stuck. I was like in a rush, and I thought, um it was around the time I did tell my classmates and friends that I was adopted, and I got a lot of feedback. I got a lot of good feedback, got a lot of support as well. So
wow.
I thought this is the time to embrace it. So I decided, why not write a book about my adoption journey? And I will use that transaction analysis to analyze myself and see what I could work on. And
Mm,
that's exactly what I did throughout. So the three ego states and the four life positions.
mm,
Once I started to read upon that, it boosted my confidence, because it see, psychology in a way, it helped me understand other people better,
mm, mm,
which in return helped me find out who I was, how I would react to certain situations,
yes, mm,
and it boosted my confidence. And once it did that, I kept a target, like one day I will attain I'm okay, you're okay life position.
mm,
So when I kept that goal, I was able to able to use this as a tool in every aspect of my life, not only my adoption, but my studies, my tennis, and my social life as well. But in the end, ultimately, I did use this for to deal with whatever trauma I had faced while finding out I was adopted, or in between the period where I was lost.
mm.
And entirely in the end, I did find out who I was, my identity. I could confidently say I am Vrithika and I'm adopted. So
I
that
think
was
that's,
my journey.
yeah, I mean, that sounds like amazing insight and awareness at your age to have so much of clarity on your life position and your ego state, and to say that this is where you want to arrive in all phases, right? Whether it's your academic or your tennis or your adoption story. And it sounds like your grandfather was a pivotal person for you. Even initially in the book, I think he played a large role.
He did actually. When my parents were in Dubai,
Mm,
when when they asked me, like when the orphanage had asked my parents to come pick me up since there was this scabies outbreak. I mean, they did say they did let me meet my family before the paperwork was completed.
Mm.
And that's when my grandparents came into play. So in a way, they were sort of my first foster parents.
Mm.
Like, so they brought me home, and I mean, me and my grandparents were very close. And throughout my book journey as well, my grandfather helped a lot. Even my grandmother. My grandfather actually taught me psychology, the basics of psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So that played an enormous role into getting where I am today.
Yeah, yeah. So in a way, like, yeah, I mean that there was that support system for you, right, Rashmi? Also, I
Yes.
mean, the grandparents coming and taking on that larger role and really instrumental in your emotional well-being. I mean, your grandfather took on that role and helped you in your research project and taught you how to use TA, you know, and to enhance your life and your life positions. So tell me, where are you in that I'm okay position?
I wouldn't. I'm not sure exactly where I I am, but I do know that I am almost near the I'm okay, you're okay position. So sort of like I don't know how to sort of lay it out because it's more like I'm idle now. I do not find a problem with other people, and I'm starting to accept that I do not have a problem myself. But
Mm,
I do know that I have not entirely attained the I'm okay, you're okay line.
okay. Oh wow, that's wonderful that you can even come to that kind of awareness that you know to that you've not reached the goal yet, but you're somewhere in that um, yeah, that you don't have a problem um, and other people around you don't have a problem, and it's not it's in that position that you're in.
I mean, it just like last year, 14, I knew that my life position was I'm not okay, you're okay. It's when I came to that understanding. Because before that, it was I'm okay, you're not okay. I was in that position. Like,
Mm,
I didn't exactly find a problem with myself. I thought I was perfectly okay. And people around me were the ones who
are
were
okay.
acting weird
Mm,
and getting aggressive. But
mm,
then last year, when I began to write this book, I realized actually the problem was with me. I was the one who was acting out. I
mm,
was only acting out because I had shoved all my emotions down and I didn't let anything, like, I didn't speak about it, which I ideally I should have.
mm.
So from there, I'm not in any position. I'm more neutral,
Neutral.
but I am working towards becoming I'm okay or okay.
Oh my God, that's awesome, Ritika. I mean, what a book. And I'm just going to tell the audience, please, please do pick this book, and you can reach out to Padme, and you can reach out to me, and we are happy to, get you these books across to you. And Ritika, thank you so much. I think it was so insightful and it was so heartwarming to listen to your journey. Um, and I don't want to go too much into the details of the book. I want the audience to actually pick your book and read it. But it's been a wonderful, wonderful, so inspiring for so many children for your at your age, and for so many parents who are always, sitting on the fence with this one and not knowing how to navigate it. And I think you've given some food for thought. Thank you, Vrithika, for such an insightful and heartwarming interview and so authentic in your journey. And thank you for sharing your deepest emotional experience uh, with me and with the audience. And thank you, Rashmi, for making this happen. Thank you for reaching out to me, saying that you have this book that your daughter has written. Otherwise, it would have just gone by, without even being noticed. And I'm so grateful for you for reaching out to me and sharing your journey. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much, Gayatri, for connecting with my daughter and uh, believing in her. It's wonderful to be connected to Padme.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah.